All right, so here we go. So I want to give you guys, like I said, kind of a shorty McShorterton demo. So what I've got here are a couple different things, okay? We've got our basic watercolor set. Notice it's from Crayola. So even though I'm expecting you guys to paint better than kindergartners, I'm giving you the skill set of kindergartners because this is not good supplies. Most of you guys have already put two and two together and figured out that you're going to want to use these kind of water brush or these paint brushes here. They hold water very, very nicely. If you're using the big time guys, it just doesn't hold. It's made for the big guys are made for acrylic. This stuff is actually made for watercolor. Particularly these nice little pointed brushes here. They hold water very, very nicely. So the different brushes are going to give you different effects. Okay. I've got my little paint tray right there, good to go. I of course have a little couplet of water. Looking good. I've actually got a little bit of paper towels, and it wouldn't be bad. It would actually behoove you to grab some paper towels and have them on the side ready to go. And finally, for the sake of me and time, I've got a heat gun as well, which I'll use to burn things. So we've got one color code that we as a class voted on and everything else, and this is what our characters look like. It's what you guys decided. So I'm going to use this while I start painting up my characters. Okay? All right. So I went through, during planning period here, it took me about 10 minutes real quick, and I drew up a scene. This is, of course, from the sequel to our book, where Norman gets a birthday cake from the Color Witch. Okay? So, I assume. So you can see I've got a nice little cake. I've got the witch. Look, she's so happy. She's probably going to poison him or something. And here's Norman. He's like, oh my gosh! Right? So he's all happy. Okay. So this is the scene that I sketched out. And again, you can tell the pencil lines are very, very light. I've darkened the screen. I've upped the contrast on the screen a little bit. But again, this is pretty much our picture. Okay. All right, so here we go. So remember how I said before that water is in essence kind of our white, right? So if you need to make something lighter, you're going to use water to do so. So keep that in mind as we're going along. At the same time, too, I'm going to use my little trays here to kind of get a good mixture of colors. So for right now, I'm just going to stick with Norman. I'm not going to worry about the Color Witch yet. I'm going to stick with Norman. It looks like he's kind of this aqua teal blue color with kind of a nice reddish purple for his mane as well as his nose. And it looks like he's got some gangrene growing in his toenails with some nice yellow. And his horn is also yellow. So I've got to mix up kind of a purpley red, a light blue, and a yellow. So the yellow will be easy. I'll just go over here to my yellow tray, pull some of this nice yellow and kind of dump it on in here. And again, remember, this stuff here is very, very potent. We do not need to color like a coloring book our picture. Okay, so I'm going to use some water to really thin that out. You can always add on more layers later on if you need to. Okay, so I'm done with my yellow already. So mix that out and dry off my paintbrush. All right. Other colors I needed were this kind of lightish blue. So I'm going to take some water, kind of activate my blue, get that going on. And again, you do not want to paint right out of the tube here. It's just not really what we're going for. It's too potent. It'll just go on really, really dark, and it's going to look like a kindergartner painted, right? Because there's just going to be super solid, and we don't want that. So I'm going to thin this down as well. Now, I would encourage you guys to feel free to mix up different colors. So for example, maybe it's not just straight out blue. Maybe we've got like a dark blue and a light blue, and you kind of get the idea. But again, for the sake of this demo and because of time and everything, I'm just going to do literally like one color per thing. So a really light blue, a nice light yellow for the horns, and of course we need to do kind of this purpley orange. So I have some purple here. I think it's going to be a little bit too dark for the sake of what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to mix in some nice, a little bit of red in there, kind of a crimson looking color. We got a little bit of orange as well. And then I'm just going to dump a butt ton of water in there to really thin that out. You can see I'm just kind of shoveling water right in there to really thin it out. At any point in time, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a piece of, again, kind of some paper towel or something on the side, just to kind of test out your color to see how thin it actually is. Okay. So again, for the sake of the demo, I've got these three colors. If I was actually doing this piece, I would totally mix up more than three colors. I would mix up three different colors just for Norman's body to have a shadow color and all that. But again, for right now, for the sake of the demo, we're just going straight out with one each. All right. So I'm going to start off. Now I could go light to dark, which would be a very sensible thing for me to do. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start off with my yellow, seeing as it's the lightest. Now notice, I already know ahead of time that I'm definitely going to end up having to do more than one coat. So as I'm painting this, I don't know if you guys can see it, but as I'm painting this, it's pretty light. I've got that contrast turned up. And I'm not always sure what I turn it up for, but I do turn up. That's a joke. I'm trying to keep things light. Sorry, I know. All right, so I've got some yellow laid down, right? Now, this is very, very light. Again, I'm just kind of take my word on it here. And I'm definitely going to go back once this is dry and put on a secondary coat. That'll give me a little bit of value and a little bit more kind of shading, okay? Again, there are different ways of drying it. If you're in a rush, you can always grab the hair dryers or like my heat gun, or just take your paper towel and kind of dab at it, right? A little bit of dab will do you, right? And that kind of lightens it real quick. And again, it's still, the paper itself is still kind of moist, but it'll definitely take care of things, okay? All right, next up. So I'm going to do my blue next. Really, I mean, it's kind of, the blue technically is probably a darker color, but I'm going to go with blue anyway. So again, you can see as I'm putting this on, and again, it should be a little bit darker for you guys, but this is this is like sky blue. It is really, really wispy. It's not a whole lot here, but I'm kind of just putting it on just to kind of get some color on there. And I'm not using a whole lot. If I get a lot of color on my paintbrush, it's just going to bleed everywhere, and I don't want that. So I'm just kind of going over top my pencil lines. Really not a whole lot of paint on my paintbrush. Just putting down a nice little coat. Avoiding his eyeball, because I want that to be nice and white. Now, I'm trying to stay inside the lines to the best of my ability, but you know what? At the same time, if I go a little bit outside the lines, no one's going to care because we're going to outline this later on anyway. All right, so I've got some blue down on Norman right there, and like I said, it is definitely very, very pale. Again, I could use the heat gun, or I can just kind of blot it. And as long as there's no big puddles, if there are big puddles on your page, you're going to want those to kind of soak in. If you go blotting at them, it risks basically spreading and kind of making a big mess. There was no puddles on mine, so just kind of blotting it real quick with that paper towel, dries it out, good to go. So let's say this for a second here, just for the sake of argument. I'm going to make sure this is all nice and dry, which it is. Paper's a little bit moist to the touch, but again, the paint's not going anywhere. I've basically stained the paper. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a second coat. Notice it's the exact same color, right? I haven't mixed up a darker value. And I'm going to start adding in, let's see here, adding a little bit more value. So I'm going to think about where the lighting is coming from. In this case, it comes from this candle that I've drawn. I'm going to put down some different values. Wherever I would normally, basically wherever I would add shading, that's what I'm going to throw down a second coat on. Hey, Tanner. Thanks. So again, I'm just going ahead, adding in a second coat where I think that shadow should be. Now, maybe I feel that that's enough, right? Maybe I want to add some more. So again, I'm just going to kind of blot it. You always notice that I'm painting kind of back onto dry. The paper itself can be moist. It doesn't need to be bone dry, but the paint isn't coming off, right? If I leave it kind of all loopy, you know what I'm saying? Whenever I add the next bit of paint on top, it's just going to bleed everywhere and it's not going to look good. So again, here I go, third round, same exact blue as before. And now I'm going ahead and just giving it an extra kind of dark. So wherever I need it to be really dark, that's where I'm going. And you'll notice that as you're going along, I'm definitely losing some of my detail on my pencil lines, and that's absolutely fine. That's why we're going to have that pen to draw all that detail back in. So I really want to darken it up. Okay. Okay, so that looks pretty good for me. I'm happy with it. It looks kind of nice. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and do his mane. Get some of that purple in there. Okay. Get some nice water. And again, I want it to be pretty thin to start with. I'm just going to put down my first coat. Nice and thin. Try to stay away from puddles. If you get a little puddle, try to splurge that out a little bit, kind of smooth it down. You don't need a whole big puddle going on. It's not going to end well. Bless you. Looks like his nose is about the same color as his mane, so I'm just going to bring that on up. Okay. So that looks pretty good. Again, I'm going to blot it dry. And I'm just pushing down whenever I do this, like straight down, okay? So same thing as before, I'm going to give it a nice little second coat. I don't really feel like I need to give it a third coat for his mane. I don't think he needs it. But maybe you do, and you can do yours however the heck you want to. Notice that, again, I'm using that same color, but it really, by adding on that second coat, it really gives me a nice opportunity to kind of control the values. And that's really what we're painting here is different values of our hues or of our color. That's what we're kind of tackling. And again, for this particular project, as we're going along, please take your time with it. Again, I'm paying the money to get this published. If you turn in junk, I'm not going to bother publishing yours. It's a lot easier that way. And if you're thinking, gosh, Kozak, that's a really mean threat. Yep, it is. No, that's how the real world is. No, all right. So again, I've done my little second coat here. I'm going to blot it dry again. And if you notice, there's definitely a pattern to what I'm doing here, right? So at this point, Norman's looking good. His colors are in the right place. Notice it took me a grand total of like 5 minutes, right? Everything's where I want it to be. But there's definitely a lack of detail going on. And again, if you were more skilled and if you take more time to learn and practice at watercolors, you don't need to rely on this kind of ink wash outline, right? We don't need to rely on it. But for right now, we are definitely starting out, so we do. So give me 1 second. I'm going to bone dry this guy real quick. Using my heat gun. You can use the hair dryers in the back. That works too. Now you want to make sure this is bone dry before you use your ink on top of it, because the ink will totally bleed even on some moist paper. You're okay, go ahead.
You just said it was alright to go outside the line, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
Yours isn't, it doesn't look like you went really outside.
Well, all right, so let's do this then, just real quick. Just
there was like one page of the book where it was like, the guy went all over the place.
Well, yeah, okay. All right, so you were bringing up the idea of do we have to stay inside the line? So let's do this. I'll do a little bit of background real quick.
Like that version.
Right? So let's do this. I'll do a little bit of background. In my case, I'm going to grab some green. I think that would be a nice little kind of background-y color. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue in there too, kind of a aqua. Again, thin it out. Start light. You can always add more later. Okay? Please remember to thin it out. All right, so I've got some really super light green. Now, I'm not going to stay within the lines. There are no real lines, right? I'm just going to kind of throw down some colors, and I'm going to mix in some stuff here. So kind of notice that there's no real rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of putting dots and stuff. Maybe I'll put a little puddle just to see what happens. Why not? So I've kind of kept the colors near my character clean. But there's a good puddle for you. Here, we'll put one over here. Why not? So again, it's watercolor. Like, you can kind of play around with this. But again, the whole idea is about layering, right? So I've got that down. I'm going to go ahead and blot it once more. And that blotting will take care of a lot of problems. So if you find that your colors are kind of bleeding all over the place and you can't really control them, most likely it's going to come from the fact that you're not really drying your paper after each go. And that's going to be a really big help for you. So again, I'm just going to kind of put down some color. A bit of water there. Notice I'm kind of even going over top of some of my stuff. That's all right with me. Right? So again, well, maybe this will help you out a little bit. So you can see I definitely kind of went out. Right? I just kind of made a mess, basically, and I don't really care. That's absolutely fine.
I mean, some people might not think.
Sure, if you're happy with it, that's the end of the day. That's what matters, is you have to be happy with this piece because it's your artwork. You are the artist. Yes, we're contributing to a big book, but at the end of the day, this page is yours. Later on, whenever I do get these published, I'll ask you guys if you would like a copy. I can actually sell you one. That's fine, and I'll just obviously charge you whatever it costs me. But if you don't want one, at the end of the day, you're the one taking home this singular picture. You know what I mean? So you have to be happy with it. You just have to be. All right, so give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to dry this off, and then I'll show you how to do the inking. Again, you just want to get it to be nice and dry. Now, in a perfect universe, what you're probably going to want to do is finish your painting today and then maybe do the inking tomorrow and let it dry overnight. That's fine. So I went to the store and I bought some pens and whatnot for us. Okay, I got us 2 brand new nice Sharpies, if you need to use a Sharpie. And then I got us these kind of inking pens as well. They have a significantly finer tip. So we got a nice fine tip right there. And then we've got just kind of a regular fine tip Sharpie as well. Okay? So I would suggest, just like with the water, you're starting off light and adding more. Start off with a thin pen. You can always go back and add on some more darker if you need to use the Sharpie. So I'm going to go through here. It's going to take me about 3 seconds. I'm just going to ink in Norman. So let's see. Nice clean outlines. I may not even need the Sharpie. Anything pure black, I'm just going to color in with my ink. Now, obviously, at some point in our story, Norman is grayscaled. And you're going to do the exact same thing we did here with color, only you'll use the ink wash. It's the exact same process. You just start off light and go dark. What you're going to find is you put your nice outline on top. It's going to start bringing your picture to life. Definitely want to take your time on this inking, because if you mess up, you gotta start all over again. A little bit of a cast shadow here for Norm. Okay, and that's it. Game over. Done deal. If you feel that you want to add on some outlines and that to the background, you want to show, maybe I want to show some trees. So maybe I kind of want to just throw in a couple little wispies here to show like the tree branches. Maybe a little bit of grass or something. You know? Or maybe I just leave it as color, and that's okay too, right? But really, our watercolor is simply a way of accenting our already nicely drawn cartoon outlines, which is why we spent so much time revising and re-revising all of these drawings. Because if your drawing isn't good, your watercolor is going to stink too, right? The watercolor is simply a different way of kind of filling in our objects and giving some value to them in a different manner, okay? So does this kind of make sense a little bit? Seeing it maybe relate more to our particular project. Again, start light, pat it down, blot it out a little bit. Don't apply too much water, you don't need it. As far as kind of globs of puddles and stuff. Nice, thin color, you'll be absolutely fine. Take your time with it. I'll leave the color sheet on the front board for you, but go right on ahead and enjoy. Thanks, guys.